a great evening. Welcome back to yet another live session of Narayana IAS Academy. So, as all of you know, this is Sureka Bhaskar here to present the daily news analysis, where we've actually picked up very important articles from both the reputed dailies, that is the Hindu, as well as the Indian Express, that become extremely important and relevant for your UPSC CSE examination. Okay, I hope all of you had actually done a good job in your prelims examination 2025, and here it is actually a must mention that a number of questions actually turned out to appear in your prelims examination from the daily news analysis, from the Navigator monthly magazine, as well as the masterclass that we have done. So almost 22 questions have directly appeared from our yearly as well as the monthly compilation of the magazine. In order to access these material, please visit our website, that is Narayana Navigator website, where you can actually find under the current affairs section the monthly and the yearly compilation. Okay, so we will very shortly come up with the yearly compilation for the mains examination as well. So for those who have actually done your best in your prelims, and those if you actually feel that you will be qualifying the prelims examination, please do focus on the mains examination, where again your daily news analysis plays a very important role. Okay, because we curate and give it to you in the best as well as the most simple way which is required for your answer writing for the upcoming mains examination. Okay, so now without any further delay, let's get started. So today's motivation happens to be discipline beats motivation every single day. Yes, it is important to understand the difference between these two terms. Okay, so what do you mean by motivation? Motivation is nothing but that initial spark or the feeling that you get when you are going to start something very new. Okay, so you are motivated to do that because you're full of energy, you're excited, etc. Okay, but it is a very temporary thing. However, if you see discipline, it is altogether a different what to say virtue that is completely different from that of motivation, because discipline is your day to day, okay, your day to day discipline, or the daily dedication or consistent effort that you actually give. Take it your preparation, take it your lecture, or going to work every day, delivering your products, etc. Okay, so that is a day to day thing, and there discipline is what actually checks how committed you are to your work, even if you do not feel like doing it. Okay, so discipline beats motivation every single day, and discipline is what ultimately leads you to the path of success. Okay, do you understand? So with this, let's move forward and look at the articles that we will be covering up for today's DNA. So the first article has been picked up from page number 17 of the Indian Express, which states cargo ships sink near Kerala coast and what can be the impact if the oil spills. Okay, so recently what happened, there was actually a Liberian container, or you can say the cargo ship. So this sank off the coast of Kerala. Okay, so this has actually posed ecological threat to the marine ecosystem over there, because it actually carried a lot of containers with very hazardous materials. Okay, so that is why because why it actually posed a threat in terms of the oil spill it actually caused. Okay, so this is why it is important for us to understand the concept of what do you mean by oil spills. Okay, so do you have any kind of initiative in case oil spill actually happens in India or in the waters or the global waters? So all that we will be discussing in this particular article. Now moving forward, so this will basically be your mains article. Moving forward, we have a prelims article. This is Madden Julian Oscillation. Okay, so what do you mean by Madden Julian Oscillation? So we know that there are a number of atmospheric processes that are actually happening, right? So such as the El Nino, we have the La Nina conditions, then we have the Indian Ocean dipole, and then you actually have what you call it as the Madden Julian Oscillation. Okay, so this becomes extremely important for you to understand. So what do you mean by MJO, and what is it going to, what is the impact it is going to have on the Indian monsoon? All that we will will be discussing in this particular article. Now, moving forward, the third article has been picked up from page number 10 of the Hindu. Defense Minister approves AMCA. Okay, so what do you mean by this combat aircraft? Okay, so what do you mean by AMCA and what do you mean by this particular fifth generation aircraft, and in what way is it actually superior or sophisticated when compared to that of the other generation of fighter jets? Okay, see, these fighter jets are classified based on their technological advancement as well as their maneuverability as generation 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And this is actually going to be the generation 5. So the execution program module has actually been approved by the defense minister. Now, moving forward, the last article for the day has been picked up from page number 12 of the Hindu. This is nothing but it talks about the Padma award that has been recently awarded to the former Chief Justice of India. Alongside different actors as well as artists have received this award. Why this award is very important? Because even in in the prelims examination that took place recently, there was a question on Gandhi Peace Prize. Okay, so there, who are all the people who are involved or who act as jury for deciding the price, was actually asked in your examination. So that is how this topic becomes very, very important and relevant for your examination. Okay, so having said this, let us quickly start with the very first article. Yeah. So the first topic is cargo ship sinks near the Kerala coast and what can be the impact of oil spills. In this particular article, we will be discussing about the conservation and the environment degradation because of, this oil spill actually causes a lot of damage to the ecosystem as well as the biodiversity that the ecosystem actually supports, both the flora as well as the fauna. And also, let's understand what is the oil spill and what are the different methods that are actually used in order to adapt, or you can say, in case if something happens, in case an incident of oil spill happens, what are the methods that are actually taken up by the global communities in order to tackle the incident. Next one, this becomes important for both the prelims as well as the mains examination, and specifically for the mains examination, it is under GS paper 3, environment and ecology, conservation, environmental pollution and degradation. Okay, so now let's actually move forward to see the PYQ that has been asked in the year 2011. A technique called as oil zapper was asked. Okay, this is nothing but it is a bioremediation method which was actually developed in order to in order to carry out the degeneration or the remediation of the oil sludge or the oil spills. Okay, so this becomes very, very important. Now, moving forward, let us see why this particular topic has been in the news. Okay, so recently you see a Liberian container ship MSC Elsa 3, not important. Okay, so you just need to know about the topic in large. It sank off the coast of Kerala, which is actually causing an oil spill, thereby degrading, or you can say causing a threat to the environment. Okay, so let us see. The ship actually carried around 640 containers. Okay, 13 with hazardous cargo, and then certain containers had calcium carbide also, and there were so many tons of diesel which are present there, and so much of furnace oil which has been present in this container or the cargo ship. Okay, so what is the concern currently? See, India also has actually experienced what? The early onset of monsoon, right? So Kerala, which actually had to get the monsoon by around 1st June, has received somewhere around 23rd or 24th of May. Okay. So now what happens? These monsoon currents actually has the chances of pushing this oil further inland. Okay. And the next one is that when it actually reaches the mangroves or the mud flats, then what happens? Cleaning it becomes very, very difficult, and also it can disrupt the ecosystem as well as all the organisms or the other biodiversity that is depending on the same, as well as the livelihood of the communities that are dependent on the ecosystem. Do you understand? So now let us discuss about what is this particular oil spill. So this is leakage of petroleum and associated material into a sea of large body of water, especially the marine ecosystem. And this is definitely because of human activity, right? And oil spills can not only pollute the water, but also the land, air, or the water, though it is actually what to say, connected with that of the marine pollution. Okay, now let's move forward to see what are the effects of oil spills in the environment. Okay, the first one is habitat disruption. Obviously, when there is spills of oil, it can threaten the different biodiversity which are located over here, or the aquatic habitats are affected. Okay, and the second one is coral reefs and the aquatic organisms. You know what are coral reefs, right? These are, constant deposition of the exoskeleton of the coral polyps, which are made up of calcium carbonate, and that over a period of time become what? Coral reefs, and they are in symbiotic relationship with that of the algae. And that algae is called as what? The zooxanthellae. Okay. So what happens when there is oil spills? What happens? The ecosystem, or you can say the biodiversity that live within these corals as well as around them, are at a risk. Okay, because of the toxic substances that are associated with the oil spill. Next one, the salt marshes. These also actually host a large biodiversity of plants, animals, etc., and mammal life. Okay, so both of them will be damaged by this particular oil. Next one is the mangrove forest. Okay, so mangroves, what happens is that when this oil actually, see, mangroves, they have submerged roots, right? So when this oil actually coats these roots, when the roots are coated with oil, then what happens? It becomes difficult for it to breathe. Okay, so there will be instability in the ecosystem. Do you understand? So this is what is the effect that it will have on the mangroves. Next one, marshes and swamps. Okay, so in this case, what happens is that there will be severe impacts on, on the marshes and swamps, because what, they are very, very stagnant in one particular area. Okay, so they are not even like moving water, so it is actually going to affect them, because in calm water condition, the affected habitat may take a lot of time to restore back. Okay, so this is what is the effect of oil spill on the environment. So if you see this particular diagram, this is actually a container. Here the oil is actually being spilled, and this is the prevailing wind, and anyways the oil spill, which is over here, actually undergoes evaporation. Okay, so there is what? There is air pollution as well. Okay, and then what happens is that there is emulsification or breaking down of this oil, and then after that there is dissolution, and then there is actually an interaction that these oil particles have with the sediments. Okay, so that is why there is also impact on the ecosystem over here. Okay, so this is what it is. Now let us actually move forward and see the effects of oil spills again on the environment. Okay, this is just a continuation how the different varieties, or you can say different diversity of the species are being affected. So if you see, first is the physical contact. Okay, so here you have the birds. How does it actually affect? See, the birds have their plumage, right? Plumage is the feather. So what happens is that when they actually come in contact with the oil, then what happens is that the buoyancy, that is nothing but the capacity of the bird to float on the surface of water, decreases, and it increases the probability of the drowning of the birds. Okay, next one is the effect it has on the pinnipeds and the cetaceans. What are the pinnipeds? These are nothing but they are marine mammals. Marine mammals, and this actually include your, you know uh, wait, these can include what are these organisms which are called? Yeah, walrus, and then you have your sea lions, etc. Okay, so these are your pinnipeds. And then if you see, you have the cetaceans. These are nothing but the organisms like the dolphins. Okay, So when they are actually contaminated, what happens? Since they are mammals, they actually breastfeed, okay, their kids, or you can say their children, okay, so the young ones, you can say. So during that, what happens is that there is long-term chronic effects from the migration because of oil contaminated waters, okay, from this mother to the child, okay, mother to the child while nursing. Next one is toxic contamination. We know when the toxins are actually passed on from one animal to another, what happens? There can be bioaccumulation and biomagnification also, and it affects the central nervous system, the liver, as well as the lungs. What do you mean by bioaccumulation? Bioaccumulation means if there is a fish, and when it actually consumes or it feeds on the zooplanktons, and when these zooplanktons are affected by certain kind of toxic substances, then what happens? The fish actually is feeding on it for years and years. What happens? It results in the accumulation of the toxins inside the fish. That is called bioaccumulation. However, if this fish passes on this to a bigger organisms, for example, let's take the whale, okay, so when this actually feeds, what happens? The whale is already subjected to some kind of toxin accumulation, but what happens? Being an apex predator, there is magnification, okay, so it actually moves on from one trophic level to another. That is called as biomagnification. Do you understand? So this is what it is. Next one is destruction of food resources and habitats. This we already saw. There's going to be a huge impact on the aquatic organisms. Next, there are going to be reproductive problems also, because it is actually the oil is going to pass on from the feathers, that is the plumage of the birds, to the eggs also that they actually hatch. That is why they cover it with their this one, right, their feathers. So when that comes in contact, then what happens? There are other problems also, which actually the eggs, or what you say, the oil actually covers the surface, that it seals the pores of the eggs, okay. So this is what is the next one. So what are the different measures to control the oil spills? First is your mechanical methods, okay. So first method is your boom contaminant. So here, what do you mean by boom? Boom is nothing but it is a barrier. So when you use your barrier to control the spread of the oil, okay, so you control it for easier recovery. The next one is we use skimmers, okay. So the devices. What are skimmers? These are devices which are used for what to say, for recovering the oil that is actually spilled over the water. Next one, sorbents. So sorbents are nothing but materials that can absorb these oil or the toxic substances that are released in the water. Next one, you have the chemical methods where you use the dispersing agents, that is these are the chemicals that break down the oil. So if these are the chemicals, this breaks this into what to say, small droplets, and then these droplets are dispersed into water column. Okay, so there is natural degradation. Natural degradation. Okay, so this is your chemical method. The biological method, I already told you, one is bioremediation. This is actually your oil zapper, where we use nutrients, enzymes, or microorganisms to break down the toxic material. Next one is biostimulation, again adding nutrients in order to stimulate the growth of native oil degrading organisms. Next one is bioaugmentation. Here also what happens is that microorganisms are added to the existing population of oil degrading bacteria. This is further augmenting the process. And the next one is in situ burning, ignition and then controlled combustion of the oil on the surface of the water. All these are certain measures to control. Now, are there any initiatives which are there in order to regulate the oil pollution? Yes, there are two different initiatives that have been brought about by the Indian Meteorological Organization. So let's see what are the initiatives. One is actually your oil pole, and this is the oil pole convention, and this convention was superseded by the Marpole convention. You sometimes they will ask the Marpol as well as oil pole conventions recently seen in news refers to which of the following. Okay, so the Indian Meteorological Organization, it plays a central role in regulating the pollution that is caused by oil in the marine ecosystem through two conventions, that is the oil pole as well as the Marpol convention. Okay, so let us see that and then move into Indian laws for prevention. So oil pole convention, this is nothing but prevention or international convention for prevention of pollution of the sea by oil. Okay, so this is called as the oil pole convention. So this actually recognized that much of the oil pollution streamed from routine shipboard operations, like what to say, most of the oil pollution, why it comes, because there is actually cleaning of the oil tank. So that is why it has actually happened. So the oil pole aims to address this issue by regulating such practices in order to prevent the pollution, however succeeded or superseded by the Marpol Convention somewhere around 1973 to 1978. Okay, so this is the convention for prevention of pollution from the ships 1973 as modified by the protocol of 1978. Okay, so that is why this is called as the Marpol and it is a key international maritime convention. So this prohibits the ships from discharging the waste into the ocean. So ships usually discharge, when they are actually carrying people, it discharges sometimes even the feces as well as the leftover food, everything is actually being discharged into the ocean. Okay, so these are the conventions. Okay, now this actually applies to various types of vessels, all the vessels. Okay, whether it is a cruise ship or whether it is your tanker, tugs, yachts, as well as the small vessels also, or small pleasure craft. Okay, and also it establishes strict regulations and standards for the people who are polluting it in order to prevent this pollution. So these are the two conventions, that is the oil pole as well as the Marpol convention. Now let us see the Indian convention. Okay, so if you actually see here, presently does India actually have a law or not, okay, for covering oil pollution and the consequential damage that it actually causes to the Indian waters? The answer is no. Okay, however, India has the National Oil Spill Disaster Contingency Plan and this too is of 1996. Okay, so this particular convention actually gives the Indian Coast Guard the mandate to coordinate with various stakeholders in order to assist the oil spill cleaning operations. The next one in 2015, if you see, India ratified the international, let me write it here, India ratified the, is it visible? Yeah, International Convention on Civil Liability for Bunker Oil Pollution, 2001. Okay, so this was actually administered by the Indian International Maritime Organization. Very, very important because these kind of organization are being asked in the examination. Okay, so recently also with respect to the minerals, right? So the question was actually asked on the minerals as well. Let me tell you what question it was. So if you see, there was a question on yeah, mineral security partnership. Okay, so whether India joined it or not, with respect to the critical minerals, India has identified whether we are rich in all these resources of minerals or not. All that had been asked in your examination. So similarly, you need to know about this international convention on civil liability for the bunker oil pollution damage, which was actually administered or headed by the International Maritime Organization. Okay, so this is one such news. So let's actually move to the next one. Before that, let us actually see if there are any queries regarding the same. Okay, so let us continue. Okay, so the next article that we will be discussing is the Madden Julian Oscillation. Okay, Madden Julian Oscillation, how it is important. Okay, so Madden Julian Oscillation, so whether this has actually been a reason for the early onset of monsoons or not, let us actually see. Okay, and it is important for us to understand the concept of Indian monsoons as well, that is the southwest monsoon as well as the northeast monsoons. It's very important. Okay, and then what is the effect of El Nino as well as La Nina on Indian monsoons. Okay, so this particular topic is important for both the prelims as well as mains, that is under GS paper 1, important geophysical phenomena. Now let us move forward to see a previous year question that has been asked on the what to say, El Nino. Okay, so what do you mean by El Nino? El Nino Modoki appeared in the news. In this context, consider the following statements. Okay, so let us actually move forward to understand what is the Madden Julian Oscillation. So the southwest monsoon, usually the onset on the Indian subcontinent, is generally on, it hits the Kerala coast by 1st of June. But now the onset has actually been much earlier than June 1st, that is it was somewhere around 23rd or 24th of this particular year. And why it's so? They are actually saying it can be because of the presence of Madden Julian oscillations. So let us actually see what are these Madden, what do you mean by Madden Julian oscillation? Okay, so these are nothing but the eastward moving disturbances of clouds, rain, etc., that move in the eastward direction along the longitude. Okay, so this is what is the concept. Okay, let us actually see. This is a large eastward moving atmospheric disturbance. Okay, so the atmospheric disturbance of clouds, rainfall, winds, etc., that forms near the equator and travels across the tropical regions. For example, if you see here, this is nothing but the eastward movement of this is the eastward movement of the atmospheric disturbances. If you can actually see, these are the clouds, and then it can actually be have rain, etc., and this is the equator that actually moves around the equator. For example, if you, how do I actually explain? For example, if this is the earth and this is actually the equator, it moves around the earth like this. Okay, so it is like this. So this is how is the movement. Okay, now let us actually see. It has two different kinds of motions, all that we will see. It is an enhanced, it has the upward movement where there is actually enhanced convection, and also there is a suppressed convection phase, and we will see all that right now. So it is a large scale eastward moving atmospheric disturbance of either clouds, winds, or rainfall. Okay, and the pressure that forms near the equator. So this is actually the equator. So here there are actually clouds and then rain as well as the wind that actually forms here, and this forms specifically over the tropical, and they actually travel across the tropical regions of the globe. Okay, so it is not a stationary system because it actually keeps moving this way. Okay, so it completes one full circumnavigation by 30 to 60 days, sometimes it takes even 90 days, like the El Nino, which is particularly what to say, stagnant. Okay, it is comparatively stationary because you can actually see that in the Pacific Ocean, the Western Pacific, the Eastern Pacific. I actually told you, right? The trade winds that actually weaken. Then what happens? There will be more or what you say, more rainfall in the western coast of America, that is the East Pacific, when compared to the drought-like conditions in Australia. All that we discussed in our masterclass. Okay, so it is a stationary system. Unlike El Nino, which is relatively fixed in the Pacific, this actually crosses the longitudes. Okay, so making one full circumnavigation around in around 30, 60 or 90 days. As it moves, what happens? There is actually an alternating pattern that it actually creates. Okay, So there is an enhanced convective phase, that is there is a low pressure and then the wind actually raises, and after a particular altitude there is actually cloud formation and condensation and heavy rain, and then when it reaches a particular altitude, what happens, it actually diverges and then it sinks. Okay, so this is what is the process that actually happens. Okay, so that is characterized by thunderstorms as well as rainfall. So an enhanced convective phase is there, and here heavy rainfall and stormy weather, whereas a suppressed convective phase is there, which is dry as well as sunny conditions. Okay, so in simple words, it is nothing but like a moving pulse of weather. When it passes over a region, when this MJO passes over a region, it causes heavy rainfall like the sudden rainfall or the early onset of monsoons in India. When it moves away, then the region experiences very dry conditions. So this is what you can see. This is your stormy wet weather, and there is actually moving up, and there is the process of convection that actually takes place, where in this particular layer it actually digresses or diverges, and there is the downward or the sinking air over here, which causes dry and sunny condition, and this is particularly over the Pacific. Now it has come to the Indian Ocean. Okay, so that is why there's early onset of monsoon in India. Okay, now let us actually move further, and we can see the vertical structure of the MJO. So what do you mean by the vertical structure of the MJO? Okay, so there is one is the upward motion and the next is the downward motion. We already saw that in the diagram, right? So in the stormy and the wet region, where there is the enhanced convection phase, what happens, there is the upward movement of air from the surface. Okay, then what happens, there is actually cloud formation, and then results in condensation and precipitation. Do you understand? And then when it goes to the upper troposphere, it actually further diverges. So this is what is your enhanced convective phase. Then what happens in the suppressed convective phase, there is a downward motion. So once the air is actually diverging, there is downward motion of the air, or you can call it as the sinking air. So this further dries up the atmosphere. Okay, so there will be no cloud formation, so suppressed cloud formation, and hence reduced rainfall. So this is what is the second condition. So this vertical circulation, that is upward and then downward, upward and downward, is actually characterized by active phase and the sinking motion in the suppressed phase, and this is actually central to MJO's impact on the weather. Okay, so this is actually a simple concept and it predominantly moves eastward. Okay, so what is the positive and the negative impact? I already told you, when its active phase is in the Indian Ocean, then India will actually have increased rainfall in the subcontinent. Okay, and then it accelerates the monsoon. There is low pressure system, again cloud formation, depressions in the Bay of Bengal, all that actually happens. Okay, so example is in 2015 there was strong MJO that led to 20 consecutive days of good rainfall across India. However, when it is negative, what happens, when it is positive over here, it is actually negative in the Pacific because the air sinks over there, right? So they will have suppressed rainfall and delay in the onset of monsoons. Okay, so this is what is the impact of MJO. The third article, very important and an easy article, which is about the Padma awards that have been recently given to many people. Okay, like for example, the former Chief Justice had received it, and also the other actors as well as people who have done significant contribution in various fields have awarded. Okay, so Padma awards becomes very important. It's a part of prelims and important for mains I actually doubt, but however part of the government policies, but for prelims it's very important. Okay, so now let us actually see the previous year question was asked on Padma as well as the Bharat Ratna award, and Bharat Ratna and these one are titles under Article 18 of the Constitution of India. Is it? Article 18 actually abolishes the titles. So you just have to, what to say, correlate the questions that is asked with your syllabus. Okay, don't think that awards actually fall under miscellaneous categories, so it is actually of not much relevance. It is of relevance. Do you understand? So when was it started, when it was actually suspended, and this is restricted to a maximum of 5 in a particular year. All these things you need to know, and we will be discussing that right now. So the former Chief Justice of India, J.S. Kehar, a veteran, actor, Anantnag, all these people have actually received the Padma Awards for making contributions in various fields. So let us actually see. See, this is your Bharat Ratna. This is how it actually looks like. And Padma Award is nothing but it is actually a highest honor. It is the highest honor that is actually given to people for their achievements in variety of fields, whether it is art or whether it is literature. Let us actually see that. Okay, so Padma Awards, it's actually categorized into three, that is Padma Bhushan, Padma Vibhushan, as well as Padma Shri. Okay, so this is actually Padma Vibhushan, Padma Bhushan, as well as Padma Shri award. So if you see, Padma Vibhushan for exceptional and distinguished service, and then Padma Bhushan for distinguished service of a higher order, and Padma Shri for distinguished service. Distinguished service in which of the following? Let's see. The fields of recognition include art and culture, it can be literature and education, it can be science, engineering, it can be public affairs, it can be social work, as well as medicine, trade, civil service, sports, and other fields, including the conservation, whether you're working for human rights or promotion of Indian culture. Okay, so this is why it is given. Eligibility is, it is given to all the individuals, but one sad thing is that it is not given to the government servants, except for certain doctors as well as scientists for their exceptional work, because the deciding committee itself has bureaucrats in it. Okay, the cabinet secretary, and you have the home secretary, and so on. Let's see. So all individuals, regardless of race, occupation, as well as the gender, are eligible for this particular award. However, the government servants are not included except doctors as well as scientists. Okay, next one. Let's move forward. So history and background, this was actually asked in your examination. So this Padma Award was instituted in 1954. So it has a rich legacy, and here it actually gives the highest civilian honor. Okay, so initially if you see, Padma Vibhushan had three classes: Pahela Varg, Dusra Varg, as well as Tisra Varg. Okay, Pehla Varg, Dusra, as well as the Tisra, and later it actually got named into Vibhushan, Bhushan, as well as Padma Shri. Okay, in 1955, they have not been presented during specific periods. Very, very important to know. Okay, so 1978 to 79, and then remember during period of emergency, and again 1993 to 97. This period also it was not actually awarded. So this is about the Padma Award. And then if you see the selection process, who are all eligible, I mean how are the places actually decided, is that here there is actually a Padma Awards committee, very important. Annually it is constituted by the Prime Minister. He is actually responsible for reviewing, that is not he, the committee which is actually constituted by the Prime Minister is responsible for reviewing the nomination, and the committee is chaired by the cabinet secretary, and it actually has the home secretary, the secretary of the president, and the eminent personalities from different fields. And then the recommendations are further submitted to the Prime Minister and the President of India. So the committee actually submits it to the Prime Minister and the President. Okay, the presentation ceremony, you can see the President, Miss Murmu, actually handing over these awards, right? So this is what it is conferred by the President of India, typically in March or April, and awardees receive a certificate. Okay, so don't think they receive money, they actually receive a certificate and a medal, very, very important, along with a replica of the, a small replica of the ceremonial award. Okay, and the name of the awardees are published in the Gazette of India. Important. Next one, let's move to the important provisions. Okay, so how many Padma awards are actually given? Maximum of 120. Okay, so this excludes the posthumous as well as the awards that are given to the foreign people. Next one is posthumous awards, that is means after you actually, after a person is dead, they confer the award, but that is very, very rare, okay, and that is not included in this 120. They are rare and are given only in exceptional cases. And then a 5-year gap is required for a higher category award unless waived due to extraordinary exit. Next one, it does not constitute a title, so you are not entitled to use this particular, you cannot write your name as Padma Shri so and so, okay, or you cannot write so and so Padma Bhushan. You can't write like that, okay. So you can't suffix or prefix your award with your name, okay. So that is what it's actually told over here. Next, what is Bharat Ratna? So these are not a part of the Padma Awards, but the Bharat Ratna are the India's highest civilian award, and this also recognizes the unparalleled contribution or somebody has actually given in any field. This is actually conferred on the recommendation of the Prime Minister directly to the President. Okay, so maximum 3 awards are given in a year. Very important, Bharat Ratna, 3 awards only. Okay, so far if you see, around 53 candidates have actually received the Bharat Ratna. Okay. Okay, the last article for the day, we will be talking about AMCA. What do you mean by AMCA? AMCA stands for Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft. Okay, so here the defense minister has actually approved a model program, okay, for the development of 5th generation AMCA, that is Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft. Okay, so this is important because it's important under defense technology, and also it is important for us to understand this concept of AMCA, important for both the prelims as well as the mains examination under indigenization of defense or indigenization of armed forces. So in the previous year, you can see there has been a question on Rafale, MiG and Tejas, which are the 5th generation fighter aircrafts. Okay, so fighter jets are actually classified based on different generations. Why? It is actually based on the sophistication of the technology, whether they are subsonic, that is first generation, they can actually become supersonic, some of them are even hypersonic, okay, and with respect to the stealth capacity, where they can evade an enemy radar. So based on all that, it is actually classified as this. Okay, now let's move forward to see this particular AMCA. This is AMCA. Okay, nothing but the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft. Okay, so the defense minister has approved the program execution model to develop India's 5th generation AMCA. So now let us actually see the features of this one. So India's AMCA actually happens to be India's first 5th generation fighter aircraft, and now if India actually brings this to implementation, it will be the 4th country which actually follows United States, China as well as Russia. So these already have what? The 5th generation fighter aircrafts. Okay, so how will the aircraft be? It is actually a single seater and the engine is actually a twin engine, and then it is actually a medium weight multi-role fighter jet. Okay, so it has advanced stealth features. What do you mean by stealth? It can evade the radar of the enemy. So it is being developed by the Indian Air Force and the Indian Navy. Very, very important. And it is designed by the Aeronautical Development Agency and Aircraft Design Agency under the Ministry of Defense. Okay. Now moving forward, it actually has the stealth feature, that is very advanced stealth features in order to reduce the detection by the enemy radar. And if you see the fuel and the weapon capacity, it actually has a large internal fuel tank. See, all these are, there's nothing conceptual to understand, all these are very static, you need to understand these facts. Okay, so it has a capacity of 6.5 ton, okay, and it actually can carry weapons also, which is capable of carrying a large range of weapons. The next one, the engine. First one, what will be developed for trial is MK1 Mark 1, and then what happens? Another sophisticated one, another variant will be Mark II. That is the variant, okay, in collaboration with the international partners. Do you understand? So this is very, very simple for us to understand, okay. So that Mk1 variant will actually be powered by a US engine, and then the Mk2 will actually utilize an even more potent engine. Do you understand? So this is actually the key features. So jet fighter generations. So I told you the fighter jets are classified according to, or they are classified as generation with respect to what? The technology developments and the sophistication that the fighter jets actually have. Okay, as they actually emerge, what is the advancement in the technology that is actually used in their production and their features? This is based on this only. They are called as first generation, second generation, third, fourth, etc. Now let us move forward and see what are first generation. So these actually came around 1940s and 1950s. So here they will have subsonic speed, which is actually slower, okay, around 1 to 2 Mach, and then they will be by manual control, and they can carry, very basic armaments like guns, unguided rockets, etc. Example is MiG-15 of USSR, as well as the USA actually has the Sabre F-86. Next, India's example, we do not have any kind of indigenous first generation. Do you understand? Next one, the second generation. This also, it actually has a supersonic speed that is actually moves with a at a higher phase, or the rapid pace, when compared to that of the first generation that were subsonic. Then introduction of radar, and then air to air guided missiles, and then they had the wing designs also. Here MiG-21, which is imported from Russia, is actually an example. Okay, now let's actually move forward and see the third generation. This has multi-role capabilities and enhanced avionics. Okay, so the soundproofing systems and everything is extremely sophisticated and developed, and then it is more advanced guided weapons. And here India's example is HAL HF-24 Merit. This is India's first indigenous fighter, which is a third generation fighter aircraft. Okay, next one, let's move to the fourth one. Here also what happens, there will be high maneuverability, and then they are actually multi-role, for multi-purposes they are used, and then beyond visual range combat capability is there. So how much ever is visible to your naked eye, beyond that also they can actually go and attack. Okay, so India's example is Mirage 2000, and then you have the Su-30 MKI. Recently you would have actually heard about it because of the clash that India had with that of Pakistan, and then HAL Tejas MK1 are such examples. And then the 4.5 generations are also there, and finally the fifth generation, where you will actually have the full stealth design, and these are super cruise missile. Okay, so they are supersonic without an afterburner. Not very important for you to understand, but just know what it is. Examples are what? Sukhoi Su, and then you have the Chengdu J-20, then F-22 Raptor, F-35 Lightning. These two are by the US. Okay, and then it has advanced sensor fusion and data processing also. Okay, and it also can actually accommodate AI based systems. So these are all the examples. Now let's move forward to discuss the mains practice question. Oil spills are actually a serious threat to marine ecosystems and coastal livelihoods, particularly in the ecologically sensitive regions in India's coastline. So in this context, discuss the environmental consequences of oil spills and the measures adopted to contain and mitigate their impact. So in the introduction, you will actually talk about oil spills refer to accidental or deliberate release. So what do you mean by oil spill is actually spoken over here, and then you have to say the recent oil spill caused by Elsa 3 off the Kerala coast actually causes a lot of risk, and especially to the marine ecosystems, and specifically when the cleanup is actually becoming tougher. And then in the body you talk about what is the damage that oil spills can cause on the environment and impact on the biodiversity, and finally the toxic contamination not only affects the water but also the air as well as the land. Okay, So, and then what is bioaccumulation, all that you'll be talking, along with the measures that, the mechanical methods, bioremediation, the substances which are involved, the chemical methods, all that you'll be discussing. And finally, you'll actually say that there has to be a proper response or multifaceted response, or the early warning system should also be there. And even if the early warning is not there, what happens? Adaptation should be green, or you can say eco-friendly technologies should actually be used, okay, to safeguard the marine biodiversity as well as the coastal livelihoods that depend on the marine ecosystem. Do you understand? So this is done. Now let's actually move forward to the PYQ, I mean not PYQs, the MCQs that were actually part of the topics that were discussed day before yesterday. So which of the following statements best describes the base editing? Very, very important, okay? Base editing over traditional CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing, okay? So, base editing can insert entire genes into the genome without any risk of mutation. No, this is wrong, okay? So, base editing modifies the bases. See, DNA is a double helix structure, right? And it actually has what? The bases. It has the what? ATCG, right? You have the adenine, the thymine, the guanine, as well as your cytosine, right? And instead of cytosine, if you put uracil, it is the RNA. So, here base editing modifies the DNA bases without creating double-stranded breaks. Yeah, because if you take the CRISPR-Cas9, these are molecular scissors and they actually cause a break in the double helix structure itself. So, when there is a break, what happens? Mutations can also happen that is harmful to the body. That is why base editing actually modifies it without creating the breaks, making it even more precise as well as safe, okay? So, this is what, so your answer is option B. Now, moving forward, the next one, which of the following factors is not used by the IMD? Not used, okay, by the IMD to declare the onset of southwest monsoon. So instead, instead of just focusing on what are southwest monsoons, what are northeast monsoons, etc., you should also know what are all the factors that the IMD considers in order to declare a monsoon period. Okay, so rainfall at specific stations over Kerala, yes, very important, yes. Depth and direction of southwesterly winds at lower atmospheric levels, yes, this is also considered. Next one, sea surface temperature in the Arabian Sea. This is not considered, okay. However, it plays an important role in Indian monsoon. This is actually not considered. Outgoing long wave radiation over a defined region, this is also considered. So, since sea is not a part, here your answer is option C. The last question for the day, with reference to the Bharat forecast system, which was actually the recent, the initiative of the IMD, consider the following. It was developed by ISRO. No, it was IIT, Pune. Okay. Next one is IIM, I think. Yeah. So, it offers the weather forecast at a spatial resolution of 6 kilometers. This is correct. It is powered by a high performance computing system named ARCA. This is also correct. And it will cover the polar regions and provide forecast for the entire globe. This is wrong. It actually does not cover the polar regions. Okay. So, since 1 and 4 are wrong, this will go away, this will go away. So, 4 is also wrong. So, your answer will be obviously B. Okay. Now, let us actually move forward to see the remaining questions. These are the practice questions that are, based on the discussions that we actually had today. Okay. So, one is actually on the Padma Awards. The next one is the 5th generation aircraft. Next one is the MJO, that is the Madden Julian Oscillation. For this, we request you to visit our website, that is Narayana Navigator website, so that you will actually understand better how to attempt an MCQ and on the mistakes that you have actually committed post this discussion, and to introspect and analyze the gaps or the concepts that you are missing. So thank you so much for being a part of this particular session. So what to say, I hope you actually enjoyed the session. If you did, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy YouTube channel. Thank you so much. We'll meet you in yet another live session tomorrow.